All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashum Yahushua, Bahashum Rukakudash, and of honor to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rakaya from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with an impromptu lesson. I just wanted to touch on a few things, that are happening, which is the societal and political turmoil that's taking place in America, Babylon the Great. And as you've been paying attention, all right, with the death of this guy, CK, all right, there's been a lot of political and societal turmoil to follow his death, all right, and that's prophetic, all right. We're entering into the latter days of America, all right, Babylon the Great. And right now we're starting to witness the Lord really set a clear-cut divide within the society. All right, and the Lord said in the book of Luke, excuse me, the book of Luke 11 and 17, he said, but he knowing their thoughts said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. All right, and right now we're witnessing a house divided against itself. You have these right-wing Edomites divided against the left-wing Edomites. You have liberal Edomites against conservative Edomites. You have the Edomite, the average Edomite against the average Jake now. All right, because following this guy CK's death, you've had a lot of societal turmoil in the terms of racial divide. All right, start to come out more and more as well. All right, now the races are being divided. All right, more than they it's going back to that old spirit. Now Jake and Esau are starting to be divided once again. All right, we understand, pursuant to the word of the Lord, man, that a kingdom divided cannot stand. First and foremost, these Edomites are divided against themselves. And they've been divided against themselves from the foundation of this kingdom. But now that divide is starting to take a toll on America, Babylon the Great. Now these different ideologies, make America great again, integration, these ideologies are clashing, all right, and we're starting to see, the malfunction of Edom, the malfunction of Edom. The malfunction of Edom is right before our eyes, facing center. Excuse me. And the death of this guy, CK, has really helped to highlight the divide that's already been present in America, Babylon the Great, man. All right. And this turmoil is prophecy. All right. The Lord prophesied of the very same divide that we're witnessing right now. All right. Let me get this in the book of Isaiah, chapter 19. And let's start at verse 1. The point is in 2. It says, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. And the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother. All right, now we understand that America, all right, is the modern day Egypt, all right, spiritually. Okay, America has modeled, all right, and emulated every idol, all right, some of the different cultures of ancient Egypt, all right, is taken on and emulated. All right, America is spiritual Egypt. Likewise, spiritual Sodom, Gomorrah, the rest of the 5 cities. All right, spiritual Rome, spiritual Greece. All right, America has really modeled every kingdom before it. All right, and glorified all of its wickedness to where we have the height of wickedness, which is this empire. All right, with this great whore. All right, that is encompassed every wicked empire before it. All right, so America is modern day Egypt, it's spiritual Egypt. All right, excuse me. You look at the back of your dollar bill. You see that pyramid and that all-seeing eye. That all-seeing eye. Is representative of that ancient Egyptian empire. That America has modeled itself after. But this is Isaiah 19 and verse 2. It says, And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And I'm gonna grab that in the NLT. Isaiah 19 and verse 2 in the NLT. I will make Egyptian fight against Egyptian, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, city against city, province against province. All right, and right now, brother is set against brother. All right, these Edomites, these Egyptians are set against each other. All right, and that is a blueprint for the end of an empire. That is the start of an the collapse of an empire. Divide, division. All right, and that division is getting greater and greater as the days go by, man. All right, and this is all prophesied through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai. The prophets warned you, through the Spirit, starting with our elders, apostles on down. All right, the prophets have been warning of years, for years. All right, the racial divide that's getting ready to take place, the class divide that's happening right now. All right, with the destruction of the middle class to set the poor against the rich. All right, the division against these politicians. All right, the Lord is bringing a divide in the planet Earth. There's a great division coming to the planet Earth, and it's already here. All right, and it's causing great turmoil. It's causing great turmoil and chaos. All right, and that is exactly what the Lord prophesied 2,000 years ago, and that's what the prophets that came before us prophesied of as well. They prophesied of this very same turmoil. All right, now we're starting to see it play out in real time. Because with the death of this guy CK, one thing that is highlighted is, the differences in ideology. Excuse me. The difference in ideology and values between these Edomites. You have a lot of these conservative Edomites who really believe that, you know, in that MAGA ideology, make America great again ideology, and they're really trying to go back to the old days of Babylon the Great, which is the point where you Jakes, you Israelites, were in hard bondage, and it's also highlighted, the societal tension that's always been present. Now you have the scope being put on Jake, Negroes, Latinos, and American Indians, mainly Negroes. All right, the scope has been put on these Negroes and painting them out, painting Jake out to be the demon within the American society. Negro males are the main cause of chaos and crime in the American society. Negroes are the main ones sucking up the resources and causing a great strain on the economy. Now the picture is starting to be painted against Israel, and it was like this going back into ancient Rome. Before they came and burned down Rome, they demonized it. They demonized Israel. They painted Israel out to be these some great terror, to the society, some great terror to society that they have to expel. And that's the same ideology that's here and that's being stirred back up here in America, Babylon the Great. All right, the ideology that Jake is some great terror to society. Therefore, we have to, something has to be done about these Negroes. Underlining the fact that the so-called white man has been the most destructive in the planet Earth when it comes to world affairs. Somebody called me in the middle, but they're underlining the fact that the so-called white man has been the most destructive character in the planet Earth since he's came into power. All right, on a worldwide scale, and when it comes to destructiveness within his own society, within his own empire, he's been the most destructive character the world has ever seen. But they're underlining that fact and trying to paint, Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians out to be the bad guys in the earth. And that's all prophecy, man. It happened before, it happened aforetime, and it's happening once again. This time, though, the Lord is giving the elect, the foreknowledge, and the faith and the wisdom to prepare for these things, before they fully enact, before they fully take place. The Lord has given us time to increase in faith and knowledge and understanding so that we might be able to maneuver in these latter days properly through the Spirit of the Lord, man. You know, but this societal and political turmoil is prophecy, man. All right, I'm going to read it again in Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 2. And I will make Egyptian, let me get it in that KJV. It says, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And right now, there's the spirit of Egypt is failing, and it's been failing, ever since the truth took place on the scene. Ever since the mouthpiece of the Lord has been on the scene, the morale and the spirit of Egypt has started to fail. And even more in these past 5 years, man. In these past 5 years, the spirit of Egypt has taken a nosedive. There isn't the same morale here. There isn't the same spirit in America anymore. These holidays, these different functions, these parties, these celebrations, they don't hit the same like they used to hit back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s. Everything has lost its luster. And that's the reason why is because the Lord has brought a great divide in this society, starting with the separation of his elect from this beast system, man. As the elect have separated themselves from this world, the spirit of Egypt has started to fail. Because the spirit of Egypt, Egypt, this America, all right, thrived off of the spirit of the Lord's elect. It thrived off of the spirit of the Lord's men. But now that that spirit has been redirected toward the prophesying of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai and the prophecy in this word, all right, the spirit of Egypt has started to fail. And it's all prophetic, man. It's all according to the word of the Lord. I want to get it in the NLT. It says, the Egyptians will lose heart, and I will confuse their plans. They will plead with their idols for wisdom, and call on spirits, mediums, and those who consult spirits of the dead. All right, and these Egyptians are losing heart as the days go by. Really, as this great awakening happens, people are starting to realize that the farce in the American dream. There really isn't an American dream. It's really a nightmare. And the average American is living check to check. The middle class American is being phased out of society, and everything is going back into the way that the elites have drawn up their plans. To have the power within the hands of few, and to have control over many. This is the way that society is turning. All right, and it's turning against even some of these Edomites' favor. All right, and it's causing a great turmoil. Now you have a lot of these Edomites gearing up to go against their own society. You look at some of these videos on TikTok and YouTube and these different social media platforms. You see a lot of these Edomites gearing up to go against their own society because they're coming to the realization that the elites of their own people don't give a damn about them. They don't care about their well-being. They don't care about their health. They don't care about you. They don't care about anything that has to do with them. The only thing that these elites truly care about is their Godhead, establishing themselves as God in the planet Earth. And that's why 2 Thessalonians, the second chapter, really is starting to hit, here in these latter days, because the so-called white man is being highlighted, especially the elites of the so-called white man. The Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Gettys, the Oppenheimers, they're starting to be highlighted in this society, especially the wickedness that they propagated throughout the four corners of the earth. That man of sin, that son of perdition is being revealed. All right, and with the revealing of the man of sin, the son of perdition, all right, the Lord is starting to make his presence felt more on the earth, man. It's a give and a take. As Esau is being exposed, the Lord is bringing his spirit and starting to saturate his spirit in the planet Earth. And that's why we see this great uproar between these Edomites, between this American society, because the spirit of the Lord is saturating this place, man. Truth is starting to go reign in the planet Earth. People are starting to come to the realization of what truly is happening within their own, well, right before their eyes, man. And the Lord told you so, man. You know, the men of the Lord told you so through the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, starting with our elders, apostles on down. And the average person is going to see that they had a prophet amongst them. But at that time, it's going to be too late. Like it says in Ezekiel 33, you know, these people don't realize that there's prophets among them every day, especially on the highways and byways, week in and week out. Every single week, the word of the Lord is went forth. And every single week, the word of the Lord was scoffed. But we're coming into that time of no remedy, like it says in 2 Chronicles 36 and 16. All right, we're coming into that point of no remedy. All right, the Lord is going to say the word and perform it, and there's going to be no room for opinions, you know, no room for debate, no room for skepticism. All right, it's going to be cut and dry. Truth, reality is going to be cut and dry. Can't escape it. You know, it is what it is. Division, it is what it is. Turmoil, it is what it is. Destruction, it is what it is. There's no more room for skepticism, debate, opinions. All right, we're living in that time where the word of the Lord has been said, and now it's starting to be performed. And now the boldness of his men is starting to be made manifest. The reason why you had men out in the highways and byways week in and week out saying the same thing, you know, warning of the same turmoil. That reason why is starting to manifest. But I also want to get this in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And I'm gonna start at verse 1. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And verse 1, it says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened." All right. And we're in that day, we're approaching that day where, you know, the keepers of the house are trembling. You know, these different economic forecasters, you know, these different guys who you know, watch the economy, you know, watch the trends that are going on in America concerning, you know, prosperity and collapse. You know, they're starting to tremble. You know, everybody's coming to that realization that this is a falling empire. This is a failing empire. You know, and it's only a matter of time before it reaches, you know, the bottom, you know, before this society really comes to the point of actual collapse. It says, and the strong men bow themselves and grinders cease because they are few, you know, going into the work. All right, which, you know, they came out with the statistics, you know, quote unquote, the statistics of how joblessness is at an all-time high under the Trump administration. You know, under the Trump administration, jobs have become obsolete. You know, and that's something that, you know, the men of the Lord already foretold because of the onset of AI. You know, and this technology. The way that Esau has been using AI and this technology, it should have told you years ago, all right, how they're planning on phasing out human labor. All right, if they can get a computer to do it, they'd rather get a computer to do it than to get a human to do it. All right, and a lot of these jobs, a lot of these entry-level jobs, McDonald's, you know, Burger King, Publix, you go to your local Publix, your local grocery store, all right, a lot of the cashiers have been phased out already. And it has went to that self-checkout system. You know, the grinding is ceasing for a lot of people. You know, back during 2020 when the whole number 19 ordeal happened, you had a lot of brothers who lost their jobs, you know. A lot of brothers who have been getting fired recently. You know, me myself, lost my job a couple of months ago. You know, a lot of brothers have been getting laid off and fired and so on and so forth. And that's just the prophecy of the Lord coming forth into reality. You know, the grinding is ceasing. Pretty soon, there ain't gonna be no more jobs for these people, man. Outside of those who forward the enterprise of these elites, there ain't gonna be no more jobs for these people. They're gonna have to completely rely on this Edomite government, and they're gonna have to take the chip as a result. You know, but I just want to bring a couple of things out. Quick impromptu lesson. You know, societal and political turmoil is prophecy, man. We're going to see more and more divide. We're going to see more and more division when it comes to society, when it comes to these politics amongst these Edomites, these plebeians, patricians, these Democrats, Republicans. All right, we're going to see a lot more divide here in these latter days between both facets of the society. And it's all prophecy according to the word of the Lord. And in the midst of this division, the body of Yahweh Shai is getting closer and closer. You know, it's always a trade-off. As this world divides, the body of the Lord is coming closer. You know, the body of the Lord is strengthening. All right? But with that being said, that's all I have for this lesson. When this is edifying unto you elect, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Bahashim Rukakwadash, and up honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. Shalom. Stay up.